Today we're talking about introducing evidence with credibility. Let's say that your friend comes up to you and they say, "Do you know Justin Bieber?" And you say, "Of course I know who Justin Bieber is." And they say, "Well, he died." Probably the first thing that you're going to ask is, "Where did you hear that?" And they might give you a variety of different sources. They might tell you that their friend told them, or that they saw on Facebook, or on TMZ, or The Onion, NBC, Twitter, whatever the case is. You automatically are going to put a judgment on that source. So if they say, "Well, my friend told me that he died," I would bet that you would want to know from a more credible source than their friend, because anybody can say anything they want and lie. If they said, "Well, Facebook told me," anybody can post anything they want on Facebook. So that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be credible or that it's a true source, a trustworthy source. If they told you that they saw on TMZ or that they read an article on TMZ, TMZ pretty much is accurate when it comes to celebrities. So I would believe that. The Onion is a satirical news source, meaning that they write fake news articles for the sake of humor. So I wouldn't trust that. If they gave you a news organization like NBC, that's trustworthy. And then finally, Twitter, that's the same thing as Facebook. It's just anybody can write anything that they want, so it very well may not be true. Um, so, what we're talking about here is credibility, which basically just means how trustworthy is this source? Can I trust them to give me accurate information? If you are here, it is most likely because I told you that you needed to work on introducing your sources with credibility. And there are usually three ways that you do it that just don't work. So you may have very well said something like, "In the article called Organ Donation, it says," and then you give the evidence. The problem with this lead in, which is "in the article called blank," that's the lead in, is that it offers no credibility. Anybody can title their article anything that they want. So I don't know if this article is coming from somebody's personal blog. I don't know if it's coming from Twitter. I don't know if it's coming from an opinion, if it's coming from Business Insider. I just have no idea. And so that doesn't lend any credibility. Another one is you will just refer to the author. According to Justin Moldover, XYZ. Justin Moldover is not a well-known name. I have no idea who he is. He could be a researcher at a prestigious university, but he could also be a first grader in Foothill Elementary. Like, I have no idea who this person is, and therefore that doesn't lend any credibility to the source. And finally, Plenty of Lives explains that XYZ. I can tell from the name that this is some sort of organization, but I have no idea what Plenty of Lives does. I don't know what kind of organization. I don't know their bias. I don't know a thing about them. So we're going to go through and we're going to fix these three, and I'm just going to show you some examples. When you're fixing your sources, make sure anything you say about them is true. Don't just make stuff up. So, from the first one where we just said originally in an article called Organ Donation, we changed it to "in an article published by the US government's website for information on organ donation, it says," and then it gives the evidence. That's a lot better because you're referencing a government website, which, I mean, if it was the government of China, might not be credible, but generally the US government is not going to lie to you. It's considered a credible resource. The second one, before we just had "according to Justin Moldover," who we did not know who that was. We changed that to "according to Dr. Justin Moldover, the head researcher for biological engineering at Purdue University, XYZ." That's a lot better because we now know that he's a professional in the field. However, if your entire argument was on something that had nothing to do with biological engineering and was instead on the economy or something like that that doesn't relate, make sure that whoever you're citing is a professional in the field in the argument that you're creating. And finally, the last one, Plenty of Lives. Before, we had no idea what that corporation was, And now it says Plenty of Lives, a nonprofit organization which raises $1 billion annually for cancer research, explains that XYZ. So now we know what that is. Let's continue on, shall we? Here are some tips. First, government websites, universities, and established and well-regarded news organizations generally don't need further explanation. So the way you would do this is you could just say, research conducted at the University of Utah explained that, XYZ, give your evidence. This one's not needed because, again, the University of Utah is already a credible source. You don't need to explain it further. Don't do this. Research conducted at the University of Utah, a university in Salt Lake City, stated that XYZ, because this really isn't lending anything extra. As far as well-regarded and established news organizations, we'll be going over that in the very last slide. 2, don't use the word credible or credibility when explaining the credibility of a source. So do say this. According to neuroscientist Dr. Jessica Larson from Oregon State University, give the evidence. Don't do this. According to Dr. Jessica Larkin, who is a credible source because she is a neuroscientist at Oregon State University, XYZ. This is just poor writing, and it makes it seem really juvenile when you use words like this. And finally, number 3, if you don't know how your source is credible, don't use it. About pages are helpful. If you are pretty sure something's credible, you can do a quick search, you can go to their about page, and it might tell you more about the organization that lends credibility. However, do not cite sources that are crowdsourced. That means that anybody can post on it whenever they want. Generally it's just like, some internet page or forum where anyone can post anything, anybody can update or edit at any point. So a few examples of crowdsourced resources would be Wikipedia, Reddit, which I love Reddit. Like I love starting at Reddit when I'm doing my research, or Wikipedia, actually both. But you want to go and find the sources that they link you to and not use them as sources themselves. So you wouldn't want to say, according to Dungeon Dragon 55 on Reddit, go back and look at what sources they're linking to you. Quora, which is basically just a different form of Yahoo Answers, procon.org, opinion pieces in news articles, etc. Now, bias. This is the last thing I wanted to talk to you about, is make sure that people don't have ulterior motives. I'm going to show you an example of evaluating bias. So over here on the left-hand side, we have this article from Business Insider that ranked Comcast as the 3rd worst company in the United States, which I could not agree more. I hate Comcast. And it says, common complaints: poor communication of upgrades and billing changes, notably for customers of recently bought out. I don't even know what that is. Lost channels for customers who didn't upgrade to digital cable. Long waiting times for technician. It's raising prices again. So again, this is coming from Business Insider, who rated, I think it was like the 18 worst companies of 2010. However, I got this message from Tom, who is, I believe, the CEO of Comcast, and it's on Comcast's website. And he says, you are priority number 1. We have a dedicated team of employees across the country working hard every day to make sure that we deliver the superior experience you deserve. We are here for you. If you have a question or concern about your service, we have numerous ways you can reach us. So if I am trying to evaluate which one is more trustworthy for telling me how good Comcast customer service is, I'm probably going to go with Business Insider that has no ulterior motives. Comcast is trying to earn my business, and of course they're going to say that they're going to work hard for me and that they're trying to deliver a superior experience. However, this is telling me it's not. So if I am trying to prove that organ donation is good, and I get my source from www.organdonationisgood.com, they probably have a hidden agenda. So you really want to watch for things like that. Finally, I told you that I would show you some news sources. What you want to do is, as much as you can, try to stay right here in the center. Do not use any sources that are over here on the left, completely on the left, and don't use any sources that are completely on the right. One thing that I do want to point out to you is, I'll explain this in a minute, but also this is fine, this is fine. So here's the best. These are both fine. These you do not want to use when it's all the way to the left or all the way to the right. A distinction I want you guys to notice is a lot of times, like, we'll say, oh, CNN's fake news or Fox News is fake news, whatever the case is. CNN opinion, you're not supposed to use opinions or op-ed pieces anyway. Don't use it. Same thing with Fox News opinion. That's when anybody can write in and they can say whatever opinion they have, and then the news organization publishes it. However, online news is perfectly fine. And both of those are credible resources that you can use. And I think that's it. So thank you so much for listening. Please let me know if you have any additional comments or concerns.